All right, so on with the discussion. I'm going to start with Susan. Tell me a bit about your community and some of the metrics you're using to measure impact.
Sure. So Cornell Hotel Society is the hotel school at Cornell University's Alumni Association. So we are a separate 501c3 from the university, and we work in coordination but independently from the Alumni Affairs Department. We've been in existence for almost 100 years. 2028 is our 100-year anniversary. And we're a passionately engaged community. Our motto is Hotelies for Life. We call ourselves Hotelies on campus, so that stays with us from campus and beyond. We have 27 scholarships and endowments that we've created over the years, valuing over $9 million that are all held at the university. 50 chapters worldwide that are using the community. A total of about 15,000 members in the world, and about 9,000 of them are in the lobby. And the metrics that we use, we're very much tracking bringing our members over into the lobby. There's a whole process that we have to go through. We're not able to get a data dump from the university. So we are tracking where they're coming from regionally, if they've activated or not, and then we're doing a lot with social media and that type of thing to bring them in. So it's our main goal right now is where are they, what chapters would they be affiliated with, and just getting them over to the platform. That's where the metrics in the system are the most utilized by us.
Really cool. Susan, thank you.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
Jason, I know your community is a little bit different, so tell us a little bit about yours as well.
Sure. Yeah. So working right now for a brand, and I've spent my career kind of on the nonprofit side, then switching to the for-profit side, then to tech and working for a brand community. So I've had to kind of adopt and change some of my metrics that I look for success, because you're always trying to match that your company's success, right? Whatever that
Mm.
looks like. And for us at Sauce Labs, I was growing the community actually through subscribers, actually through our LinkedIn, our YouTube, sorry. And so we kind of took a different route. But throughout my career, especially with brand communities, I kind of focus on community growth, total members, active users. The one that I really love to follow is month over month growth
Mm.
trends because I find that to show health and quality. And then content creation metrics that I talked about, YouTube total subscribers, watch time, month over month growth there. Engagement metrics like comments, likes, and shares. Those are important. I don't tend to follow engagement metrics nearly as much as those month over month growth numbers. And
Mm.
then platform specific growth from the we have other channels too, like social channels, and then contributions. We started to seek community contributions for our blog. And we also, not at Sauce Labs, but others where I've had a forum, we look for perhaps some gamification and growth metrics from that through forum growth and contributions there. So kind of a varied approach because I've had so many different stops along my career, but those are some metrics that I like to follow.
Very cool. And it seems like it's a mix of both maybe in platform, but also outside of it as well. So,
Correct.
very cool. Awesome. What are some challenges you think you're facing in collecting data in your community, and how do you go about kind of solving that or overcoming that?
Yeah, I think the number one thing for my community is that it's all about making sure the metrics matter.
Mm.
oftentimes you're kind of hitching your hitching your ride to one metric, and you don't want that to be a vanity metric, meaning like it's going to look nice when it comes to talking to your boss, and maybe it sounds good on paper when you're presenting it to a board, but if it's not actually moving the needle uh, for success for the business, you're leaving yourself kind of vulnerable. And especially, I've seen in tech, community managers being laid off, or directors, quite a bit within the past few years. As the economy's kind of taken its bumps, communities certainly been on that forefront, I think, of the layoffs. And I think what we're seeing, that the thing that I find to be the common thread is that the metrics that are being presented were perhaps not tied to company success. And so if you're not, so what we try to do is I try to include success metrics that are tied through revenue directly. And I think a good way to do that is through adoption for us as a brand community. We noticed specifically that time to first value, that aha moment, was not great. So we took it upon ourselves through education that we were putting out into the world, and other ways that we could engage our customer community to educate them and move them along the process faster, was a way that we could contribute and show true value to the company's success, and not just growing the community. Because if the community is not engaged and mobilized to take an action that's going to improve the business, that leaves you vulnerable.
Yeah. I love that. I think as a community manager, one of the things I always try to think about is, let me ask my stakeholders first what kinds of metrics they actually want me to dig into first. Because I've gone through and made countless reporting decks where someone says, well, I really didn't need to know about post or number of page views, because again, it's not revenue generating in a certain capacity. So um, definitely important. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, if I could just add to that real quick.
Yeah.
If people have asked me, where do I start with my metrics? It should be easy. Ask your boss what their metrics are, and then align your metrics to their metrics. That's simple.
Absolutely. Totally. Susan, anything from you? Any challenges you faced before in data measurement?
Yeah, so we are our biggest thing, like I said before, was bringing the users over, having them join our community, and our outreach to them. We have the ability to email out from the university to bring them back over to the platform and hopefully get them to sign up. It's taken a while, because we can't just do a data dump from the university and just pull everybody over. That's been a challenge, and so we're doing it organically. We have events, and we put information out on social media and other platforms to let people know that this is happening. When they come to the event, one of the things I love is that, because of the metrics, if we have members that are in the platform, you can still sign up, but if you're not a lobby member, it might cost you $5 more or something. So we're using the lobby to encourage people that it's a good, positive thing to sign up. It's for free. We say sign up for the lobby. It's for free. The lobby is what we refer to as Hivebrite, which is kind of a play on words for hotels. So we encourage them all to come over to the lobby, join us in the lobby. We've got fun little promotions that kind of are geared around, like, gathering in the lobby type of thing. And our membership also, we've got different types of membership. We have our alumni, and then we have people that have gone through the executive education program at Cornell, and they can qualify for affiliate membership. And membership to our organization is really of value. These people that have just done executive education, they really want to be a part of our community and be involved in the networking. So we are able to bring them over as well. And then also provide different pricing strategies through the lobby based upon what type of membership they have, and different factors. So we are always analyzing that data, how many members we have from these different groups, how many dues paid members we have that are helping us to fund the platform. And yeah, just the biggest challenge, just to loop it back in, is reaching out, getting our members, getting them to see value in signing up and not just going, oh, I can sign up for the event, but I don't actually have to log in. We want to make it make a value for them to log in and be a part of us.
Really cool. Susan, I think we could do even 45 minutes more just on the revenue model that you've created in your community. So that's really, really cool. Thanks for sharing. When it comes to just significant improvements in your community based on the data that you've got, Susan, is there anything, I know you've got an alumni network, what would you say the data has provided you in terms of creating significant improvements to your community?
Well, it's given us insight, and tacking in our, utilizing different metrics outside of the ones that are just built into Hivebrite, building our own, finding what's important to us and customizing that has allowed us to take a deeper dive and really understand our membership. One of the aha moments that happened recently was, so we have graduation year, obviously, is a metric, and then we also have what chapter they're involved with. But someone can be a member of multiple chapters. So you could have somebody that lives in New York but has an office in London and an office in LA, and they want to be members of all three chapters, and they can do that. So for a lot of members, I just go through and go, okay, well, this is what chapter you belong in. But to look at it on a way to actually track the data, like what chapter do I assign them to if they're members of three? So we have different regions. We've separated into regions. So I went through, and for most of them, it was an easy pop them over. But for a lot of them, I went through the process of assigning a region to them. And we did more analytics based on regions. And then I took the graduation year and put it into decades, because that was more valuable data to us to be able to look at it at the decade. What we found was, I was specifically looking at members that have opted out of receiving emails because they're blocking us. And why are they doing that? And if they're doing that, we need to find other ways to get our messages out to them. And so what I found was that for most decades, it was maybe around 20%. That was kind of the average of people that are just, they probably automatically just block all emails. But in the graduation years in the 2020s, it was over 50%. And it was mind-blowing. So we took it down, and I went granularly and looked at year by year. And there was a huge spike in the students that were most affected by COVID, that they must have been so bombarded with emails that they had gone even further into blocking emails coming through. And the younger generation also doesn't like email. They prefer to be communicated with social media. So we decided that we really needed to do so much more through social media to meet them where they are, and then using links from the social media to bring them back into the lobby and click on things and explore through the lobby. So that was a very interesting little data journey that we took, that we knew that they were more leaning towards. My daughter is actually a class of 23. So I had a case study living in my house with me. So I knew that they are much more wanting social media as their information input source. But when it comes out with the data and it's blaring, it was amazing.
Susan, if I could kind of step into like a little rabbit hole here, I heard you mention using social media alongside your community. So can you share a little bit of that? How do you use social media to kind of engage folks who are like your daughter, who prefer social media, but you've still got a community?
So every campaign that I do, when I have a publicity push out of something, for example, we do a series called Conversations with Alumni, where a student on campus will write a news story. We'll get them have a one-on-one interaction with an alum. And for them, it's a great contact. They're looking at somebody that is in an industry that they want to be involved with. They write a beautiful story about that alumni. And then we take the story, we post it as a news story. We then also have it show up as a post in our lobby feed. I then take a graphic of that and I push it out onto social media with links back to the news article. And then if depending on if the in some cases whatever we're pushing out requires an email as well. We might do an email communication, pushing that out. We might also do a communication through the university specifically on that. If so, the university has a list. We filter it out. Those are people that aren't over in the lobby yet. So we have the activity digest, which we call activity digest. I guess it's automated digest in your system that we have go out every Monday, and it has all of our news stories. So if they miss it through our other feeds, hopefully it'll arrive in their mailbox that way. But that's not getting to our folks over at the university. So we have a monthly newsletter that we send out specifically to all of them with links over to the lobby. And some of those links require them to log in, which then forces them to sign up for an account. So we're constantly pushing content out that requires them to become a member. And it's amazing. All of a sudden, my requests for membership pop up after every month. I send the newsletter out and get a couple more along the way. So it's a process, but those are our feeders. We pull them in bit by bit.
Yeah, I hear countless time and again, our clients say, well, we've got social media, but how do we make sure if we need folks over in this community, how are we bridging that gap and how do we make them separate? And I think you've done a really good job of that. So thanks for that. Jason, I know pick us out of community, Hivebrite specifically. You've done this outside of our platform. So what has been kind of a big significant impact you've seen through the data in your own community?
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of frame our community in quotes a little bit because as a brand, I'm trying to reach every single Sauce Labs is a platform for testing, for testing apps. And so our target is a software developer and test QA. And that's the testing industry is very large, actually. Developers, there's a lot of developers out there. And so rather than create our own community that is a Sauce Labs branded community, I believe very much in the community of everywhere approach, a little bit of what Susan was just talking about. And developers, there's language communities, there's communities of practice, there's communities for open source tools that are used on our platform. There's a lot of communities out there that are kind of talking to the same people, and we wanted to engage at every single one of them as much as possible. And that's hard to do. So we needed to test, right? We needed to put out little minimal viable, I don't know, we call them communities. They're not really communities. It's more like minimal viable projects that we would just throw out into the wild to see how they would perform based on hypotheses. So we looked at like slash data, for example, and I said like developers really love Twitch. They love going on. They want to see very long form live coding, get nerdy, watch that content, and then they go and try to duplicate some of the same stuff that they just saw, or they're doing it in live time with the person who's coding. And so we tried that, and we tried that for several months. And at the same time, we were kind of testing against it in YouTube and doing something a little different type of format. Still did some live coding, but introduced some interviews as well and made it more of like a talk show. And we pitted them sort of against each other and wanted to see which would do well, which would do better in a 6-month span because we couldn't support both programs. After 6 months, it's very hard to build an audience on Twitch, we learned. And so what we did was we cut that program. Meanwhile, the YouTube program did really well. And today we doubled down on that. We added another YouTube program and that's been doing really well. Combined, the two have like a 20% month over month growth that's been continuous for 2 years now. It started much higher, and obviously it kind of levels off as time goes by, but it's always maintained positive. It's still 20% for the year. And we went from zero at the start of last year to 13,000 subscribers. And then this year we're at, or I'm sorry, listeners, 13,000 at the start of this year to 50,000 at this point in the year. And so
Wow.
obviously something's going right there. And so I think it was Jerry Seinfeld said, uh, comedy is just sort of like throw something out there and hope people laugh. We don't always have to know why. It's just if they
Mhm.
do, you keep doing that. And so that's kind of our approach with some of the content. If it's
Yeah.
performing, we're going to add more, and that's been our approach, and it's worked.
Yeah. Learners, and it reminds me of like learners and lurkers, I think. People
Yeah.
always say, well, what do we do if we've got a community of 1,000 people and maybe over 500 of them are lurkers? I say, well, you wouldn't throw a housewarming party and focus only on the people who are the wallflowers. You would focus on the people who are going to use your platform or participate in the community. So I'm I'm all for testing things and saying, okay, this works. Let's replicate it. Keep going. Good.
I would love to comment on that because
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about the 80-20 rule or 70-30 in most cases, I think is really the realistic number of like lurkers to active participants. And active participants are always, going to be in that 20 to 30, hopefully 20 to 30, right?
Right.
And, or even lower, sometimes 15. Um, I really want to make content for everyone, and I'm okay with the lurkers because
Yeah.
I think, I mean, that's how I actually engage in my communities. I'm there to learn, and I think that's what we wanted out of our community was for people to learn. And
Mhm.
so we're definitely seeking contributions, and we want to engage those who want to engage with us, but we're just fine with that 80%.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, the thought I had around like, you know, throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing if it sticks, how frequently are you testing? Like, is it on, you said 6 month window. So do you test things on a 6 month window, or is it just depend on whatever project you're working on?
The 6 months was sort of this window that we had for the YouTube and Twitch because we wanted to give it time to kind of simmer. We
Sure.
always look after about a quarter because if you adjust things after a month, you don't know how. I mean, that's too early. I like a quarter because that gives it time to resonate if it's going to resonate. And then it also gives you time to make minor tweaks to it because if you're seeing it
Right.
going one way or the other, you can adjust, but
Mhm.
doing it so a little bit. And then that 6 month window is good because at that point, you know how it performed.
Yeah. I always say there's a difference in trends versus tendencies. Like
Hmm.
maybe something trends, but that may be affected by the holidays or it may be affected by like some random event that happened over time. But if there's a tendency, like it's much easier to follow tendencies because there's larger amounts of time you've devoted to seeing a tendency versus just a viral trend or something that happens in a shorter period of time.
Absolutely.
Love that. Um, Jason, let's go back. So at the beginning of the call, we talked about just stakeholders and making sure we understand like what I'm measuring is what my stakeholders need to see. So how do you communicate the value of the impact of your community to your stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the answer is it depends.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of that answer, but it really is applicable here.
Yeah.
I think community, I've seen it and I've been on so many different teams because it can align depending on the type of company, whether it's a nonprofit and it's central, like I was
Mhm.
head of membership for a nonprofit. That's completely different than when you go to a brand and you're on the marketing team, or you could be on the product org, and your goal is only to get people to learn your product and adopt your product, or whether in the sales org and you're all pre-sales or even post-sales enablement. So there's just so many ways to kind of um, organize your program. It goes back to what I was saying though originally, which I think the best advice I could possibly give is have that conversation with whoever you're reporting to, because we always report
Mhm.
to somebody. And if you're the CEO, you report to the board. It's what are their goals, what are their objectives, what do they envision as success, and then align your program to it. We can programatize pretty much anything. I think it's being open.
Yeah.
It's hard. I've made changes from departments, and I've had to change my program depending on those. But guess what? If we don't change, you're not going to be there very long. So I think it's very important that we're flexible with our programs and leave yourself metrics that, like I was saying also earlier, align to business, but can also align to community growth. That can be hard, but I think there's a healthy balance.
Yeah. Does your community, it's a developer community, so does it fit in product or somewhere else?
This is so at Sauce Labs, I started in the
Yeah.
product org. I moved to the marketing org for a while, for like 2 years, and now I'm back in the product org. So again,
Gotcha.
that's I could speak from experience. I think it's very much being fluid, adaptable, and having metrics that can hit on almost everything. The more your metrics can be flexible, the more healthy your program is too.
Mm, I get that. Definitely. Susan, what is it like for you? I think our community is based in CS. Jason's is based in more product, previously marketing. Where does your community fit and how do you communicate that impact to your stakeholders?
So we are really a community of relationships. I mean, it
Mm,
is networking. We say that it's the 4 years on campus, and then it's your 40 years of your career, and then
mm,
whatever after that is just the camaraderie from all those years. And we've got members at different stages of that, and it's it's a community of like-minded, passionate um, people that had went through a similar program. The program at the hotel school is very unique. It's changed a little bit in the past couple of years because they created a business school and brought it in under the business school. When I went, it was essentially a business degree program with a lot of hands-on technical stuff. I mean, I took courses in wines, I took courses in meats, where you literally put on every week. It's like this week we're learning the butchering of lamb. We're learning the butchering of veal, and they'd have a whole animal, and they'd cut it up, and then you needed to know what cut of meat was meant for what type of thing. So the program, food chemistry, we learned so much different food and beverage type things. Um, it was great technical knowledge, but it was
mm,
such a unique program. And the community in the program came from, you'd get there and not everybody was good in everything. It was a
mm,
program where you'd learn about building systems and architectural type things. If you were, in a building, you do a little building design. You would there'd be the typical business courses. There'd be this sort of food and beverage component, but nobody there was good at everything. So we had to rely on each other and work off of teamwork, and have different study groups and find our way through the program. It's a little bit more streamlined business school now, so it's slightly different. But that sense of community on campus when I went through the program created this tight knit group. And
mm,
so now as alums, there's different stages that we're all at. Like I said before, there's the students, there's people very in the beginning of their career, just starting out and needing the relationship and contacts of others. So Hivebrite is important to them because they're able to go into a database and find someone that's an alum that has a career path and maybe reach out to them. And we know that you don't just call somebody up and ask for a job. You reach out to them and say, I'd love to have coffee, or I'd love to learn more about your career path so it can help me with mine. Students come to us all the time as the leaders of the association, to say, hey, does anyone know anyone doing anything in this realm or that realm? And we connect them. Um, And then as they go through, you've got that stage of alums that they've got children, and the children might be eventually going to be a graduate or maybe applying to the school. So their motivations are different. So the other great thing with the platform is that we were able to customize rates for events based upon what group they're in. And so we have an event coming up where the tickets are $150 for a cocktail party in New York. That's steep for our young alumni. Well, they're already pre-coded in the system, so it's easy for us. We had a donation from an alum to be able to make it affordable for young alumni to attend events. So we're cutting that price down to $100, and we're offering 20 tickets that will be made available for $100, and we're able to code it so just the young alumni, we have it so they can see it, that's available, that price is available, but you need to you can't access the ticket unless you're within that group. I know we kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit, but yeah, do you want to throw me something to bring me back to your direction where you want me?
Well, there is, I mean, just talking about the stakeholders and like how your data is like proving impact to them. I think there's something about alumni networks that is so interesting because it's a very diverse stakeholder group. Like I'm meeting with my stakeholders within Hivebrite's organization when I'm community managing. But I think, Susan, you've got stakeholders who are maybe within Cornell. You've got stakeholders who are outside of that. And so I think a question I actually wanted to ask was, is there like would you say you mix or blend the time you spend between each of those stakeholders providing that? Or who do you spend most time with? Is it internal Cornell stakeholders or someone else?
Yeah. So, I mean, our stakeholders are not Cornell University. In fact, we provide a service to the Alumni Association because the different schools get graded on their engagement, that how they're able to engage alumni. So we're holding all these events and they get lists of who attended so they can check it off and go, we've had this many engagements. They take credit for the work that we do. It's very interesting. And they hold 1 or 2 events, alumni events a year. We hold almost 200 worldwide. So, and we're fine with it that way because when they throw events, we throw better events because, we just are able to pull it together. And it's anything from these large cocktail parties in New York City where because of our alumni connections, we're able to have them at these fabulous venues for what would normally be a lot more expensive for other people because we've got this community, to just a coffee meetup. Like, let's just, let's all get together and have coffee and see who's around. But the stakeholders, so we do have a foundation board that is made up of past presidents so every year our president changes. And so we
within the community, correct?
Within our community, yes. Okay. So right now there's about 40 of them active, maybe, yeah. So some are, well, maybe 30 because some of they get older and they just sort of sit on the sidelines and watch. But they have a board, an executive board, and so we answer to them. But we've answered to them on an advisory capacity. They if we have a question about what direction we should be taking something, they give us direction in that. But our board we have an executive board, and then we're just actually expanding that to some more directors just to have more engagement, pulling more information from our community and tapping into different smaller, like we brought directors in just to make sure we're in a lot of marketing network as far as regionally and age-wise and whatever else. So we're connecting with more alumni across our university platform.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. I want to turn us a little bit to ethics. We got a lot of questions about maybe GDPR or just general ethics on the platforms that we're working with. So Jason, let's start with you. How do you ensure ethical collection of your data regarding any privacy concerns that your users may have or
Uh,
members may have?
yeah, I mean, we honestly we follow company-wide compliance and privacy standards. Our company's pretty good about that. We update constantly, compliant with GDPR. We're also SOC 2 compliant, and we take security and safety pretty seriously, whether it's data or personal data. We our members and our customers are they're Fortune 200 companies and they need that
Mhm.
level. And so it's the same thing for us. Transparency is super important whenever we're using data. If we are able to use data for something, we make sure we tell the members about it. Um, and we make sure that any data collection is to improve the community experience rather than like exploit it or overreach.
Right.
We actually acquired a community, and so far we've kept it completely separate because of GDPR. We are not
Mm,
merging it. We're not allowed through GDPR. We're not allowed to merge databases, right? We have to do completely different outreach. We're essentially um, grafting over time that community that is ours through content. So we're trying to earn them just as much as we're earning anybody else, and we take it very seriously.
I think even a conversation about data is naturally pretty dense or like logic based, but something just a deep dive on GDPR alone, maybe that's another 45-minute conversation,
Yeah,
managing
and
those kinds of communities.
I feel like with GDPR too, it's like one of those things that people took very serious at first. I think
Yeah.
anytime there's actual fines involved, people wake up and they're like, "Oh, data, we should actually like protect people."
Right.
Instead of it's the right thing to do, which should be why we do it. But what I've noticed over the years is people have been very lax. I don't know about you, but I get letters, it feels like pretty often saying that my data was compromised in some kind of breach. And I know that's a bit different, but we don't treat data nearly as secure as we probably could. And I think that's
Yeah.
because we haven't seen those fines levied that were promised. And so I'm hoping that we start to see some of that crack down more, especially as like the EU is starting it, I think June 25th, 28th of 2025. There's going to be a major accessibility law that goes into effect. It's very similar to GDPR that all apps need to be accessible. And they're kind of
Mhm.
basing some of the fines and things like that off of that original approach with GDPR for data. So I'm curious to see how that goes because I feel like the US very much watches and follows because it is business done in Europe, right? It has nothing to do with the US, but we follow it because of so much business being done in the European Union. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I remember those early days of GDPR compliance, just being careful and very scared to even report on certain analytics, doing advertising at the time. I don't even know what we should be recording at this point. Should we disclose that we're recording or, absorbing this data? So very interesting. Sure. Susan, what about you? How do you keep your community data ethical and respectful of your members?
So, of course, we have similar issues, and our communities are in the US and completely international. So, we do deal with the EU as well. Um, like I said before, the university, we don't get a data dump from them. We have to slowly earn our members and through our emails that go out. But what's interesting is we have students as well. And so that kind of creates a different level of security that the university has. And the promotion to the students needs to be, they need to want to be part of our community. And, but we reach out to them to inform them about who we are and what we are from orientation freshman year. We do a
Mm,
pinning ceremony. We officially bring them in as members of our association. They come in and we give them a pin and we pop a QR code up on the screen after we've told them all about us and we ask them to join. and it's completely voluntary. And some choose not to because they don't know who we are yet, and they're kind of a little suspicious. This alumni group, and what did they get themselves into with this hotel school? It seems like a cult. It is sort of a way, but over the years, they with the different events that we have, the students, especially upperclassmen, by the time they're in their senior year, they are rolling in. They're wanting to make sure that they're a part of this, because if they missed it earlier, and graduation's coming up, or jobs and that type of thing. So we do an ice cream social every summer. We have an ice cream truck that gives away ice cream to hotel school students. And again, we've got the QR code. And we've got a sign that says, let us know where you're going to be this summer, because we have events, and you're welcome to join pizza parties and barbecues and things like that are happening during the summers. And we try to get the students to, they might be not at home and in a different city someplace doing an internship. We want to have them engage with our alumni community and support them when they're doing their internships and when they're off on their first jobs. So just being creative with our on-campus marketing and bringing them over and making them feel welcome.
That's beautiful. Before we begin Q&A, I want to offer everyone, if you'd like to chime in the chat, if there are any questions you have. I'm going to start our Q&A pretty soon. But before I do, I want to ask one more tiny question to both Jason and Susan. Are there any community metrics you wish you would have been measuring from the start? Anything that now you're measuring it, you're like, I wish we could have done this from inception?
Okay, so for us, like I said before, the regional tracking was something that I originally wished that I had been doing from the start. And so actually now, whenever I accept somebody into the platform, I go in based upon their location. I assign them to chapters, which I've always done, but I also assign them to a region and a decade. And it takes a little time every time I'm approving a record, but you get so good at it, it just goes really fast. And that is so helpful. The other thing that I started doing a while back, we started using those badges within the system, which we found to be kind of a fun thing. We're able to associate it with dues paid members. We're able to associate it with the graduation year. So recent grads have a little graduation cap badge, so they stand out. But we've also put in leadership positions. So if someone's a chapter president or a foundation member, it shows up that way. And then honors and awards, different if they've received an honor or an award through our association. I've got different badges for that. So once I put them up there, I got a lot of, they were noticed by the membership. And it was a quick way to just sort of see someone and learn a little bit more about them, what they've been involved with. So
that's good. I love that you're using badges to kind of spotlight some of that natural data anyway. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So to have them set up, so to work with what's already in the system, what's in the platform, that works great for us. And just sort of getting back to different metrics and things. I mean, we've built out so much that is within our community that's specific to us, that there are the analytics reports within Hivebrite that do provide the basics, but every month I do a full data dump of our database, and then bring that over into Excel, pull out pivot tables, and then I've got data that I can compare from one time to the next. That's the real drilling down data pull that we do, and that's where we get the real meaty information.
That's awesome. Susan, I'm getting some questions in the chat around just engagement metrics you're using on the platform. So I'm going to come back to you. But Jason, are there any metrics you wish you would have been measuring from the beginning too?
Yeah. What I was gonna say, actually, it's something I learned. I would say not too late, because it's never too late to learn, but I was about 6 or 7 years into my career. I spent that time in the nonprofit world, And I had been working for healthy associations that have been around for 100 whatever years. They had all the tools in place. Retention wasn't an issue. And then I moved to an association that wasn't as healthy. It was like a 100-year startup instead of a 100-year institution. And churn was poor. And I learned very quick how important early stage retention metrics are, and
Mm,
health. And that could lead, the earlier you're right. I mean, the retention starts the day someone joins, right? That's the kind of thing that we learn. And I've spent 16 years kind of trying to perfect that, whether it's through, just check-ins. So it's not just an ask relationship. Your relationship with your member should never be an ask relationship. You should always be giving, and or give and take too. But obviously there's that giving relationship that needs to be had. And pulse check-ins. We had been doing year updates, a huge surveys, and we found that people did not like to take those types of surveys. The results were limited.
mm,
We were getting them from not the entire association at the time, or now at a for-profit, brand community. And so doing those pulse chickens on a quarterly basis gives us a much better response rate, and we could keep the questions short, like one or two questions. Just, would you refer, and keep it simple like that.
so pivoting your data so that you get a better quality of data. Is
Correct.
that what I'm hearing?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. We had a question in the chat, and I think I'm going to pass this one to Susan. I know this is very probably Hivebrite specific. Marcella asks, or she says, I'd love to hear from Meghan and others at Hivebrite a review of the engagement metrics in which they've seen their clients experience success. I mean, measures that the community is sticky and that new members are coming back to engage. Susan, are there any metrics you want to throw out there? And then I'll probably follow up from you as well.
I don't know if there's anything other than what I've already brought up. I mean, the metrics that we are tracking are, I will look at networking location, but
Mm.
I know that can change. In other words, my younger alumni, it's going to change a lot because they're going to move from job to job. And so they're not always changing that metric when they move, if they're not in the platform a lot. But I'll be able to see that they move because maybe they've stopped following one particular chapter and are now following a different chapter. So as far as the other thing is just it's sort of a little bit of a tangent. We're with all of our members, you've got to look at what's their motivation to come to the platform. Like what are they going to find when they get there? What do they want? And like I said before, we've got such a range of alumni with different needs and different things that they're looking for. So in addition to our regional chapters, we have class notes, which are basically like by graduation year. So everyone is a member of, I try to get them in one regional group and then in their class notes one. For the older alumni, they're looking at obituaries. Okay, so they want to know information about an alum that has passed. And so how do I manage that information when the younger alumni really don't want to see that? Like, it's not they don't want to see it, but if I took all the alumni, like, I don't want to have someone come to my feed and all they see are obituaries, because to the younger alum, that's not interesting to them. So we utilize the main global platform with the individual chapter platform and provide information for them so that obituaries will live for someone that's not leadership at a high level. It will live between the chapter page and the regional and the class notes page. And so that information stays there in like a news story that I'll link to both. And then it's not something that's on my main feed. it's there when someone's looking for a region or a class notes. So, but as far as I don't know, I'll toss this one over, back to you. I kind of took it on a tangent there, but
no, it's good. I definitely, if there's something that I would share with the audience, I mean, if I could give a very short explanation, um, I think there are tons of different things you could report on in the platform, i.e., active user, engagement rate, you know, events registered for, attended, time on site, those kinds of things. What I always recommend to our clients is to look at very simple data and turn it into the story or turn it into the seasoned data that you'd like to report on. So what I mean by that is, let's take active users, for instance. Our platform easily measures active users, but that doesn't tell people what the impact of that number is. And countless times over, I've managed multiple communities now. I'm able to say, we've got active users, but of this active user count, if a user is not active on this platform, they are 10% or 40% less likely to donate back to the organization. Or our active users are, I saw it in a climate community I helped consult for. Active users contributed 3 times as much volunteer hours than someone who was not actively on the platform, because our platform provided them with trainings, it provided them with opportunities to connect and figure out how to volunteer. So to Marcella, if there's something that I'd recommend, obviously our platform tracks a lot of basic metrics, but it's important to figure out what is the actual impact you could pull from that number. So because users have downloaded X amount of resources, they're 10 times more likely to do a certain action for the organization. So always tying it back to something of that nature is how I like to encourage you guys. There is a question from Kimberly I want to answer. So Kimberly says, great conversation, many wonderful tips. So kudos to both of you. Kimberly mentions they've launched their community over the last year. It has about 200 groups. It's massive. So what are the top 3 things you'd advise to increase engagement and activity within your community?
I'll take that. I mean, first of all, there's a lot of unknown as I'm answering this question, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think things that I've done that I think boost engagement, especially with a very broad community. Something that we introduced this year. Oh, first of all, MVPs, right? Minimal viable programs. Throw them out there, see what works, judge it over time. Don't be afraid to iterate. That's what I would do. Some of the programs I would start with, I don't know what type of company you are at, but we do office hours. We didn't do office hours until this year. We did a couple, and they were fantastic. They had such huge, okay, higher ed. Okay, so I mean, I worked at a certification company and I built a community there. It was a certification that only did certs. And what I did was, I'm the kind of learner that doesn't learn from the teacher. I learn from others in my class. And so what we started to do was create cohort learning groups and by certification kind of create a track and break it out and have little groups that would meet to cover specific topics. By the end, when they would go to get their certification, almost all of the ones in our cohorts would actually get their cert, which was insane because our certifications were very hard to get. And so that we just expanded again, like we went from 0 to 50, some type of similar thing in 2 years, number 50,000 total number of participants. So I would just throw out some things like that. Personalized content always works. Ambassadors always work. So champions of your program, give them those badges that Susan was talking about. People love that kind of stuff. Leaderboards always work. I don't know about you, but I am doing Duolingo and I'm after that streak. I cannot stop my streak for learning. So we are very much easy to manipulate in the sense of through gamification. those are some things I would recommend.
Yeah. Even in gamification, one thing I was just talking about with a client today is honoring time, like time-based gamification. You've been here for, my partner does Duolingo and is on like 750 days so far. Like even that as a metric or as data, but also as gamification can be an easy engagement tactic. So really
I'm
cool.
fit only because of my watch. If my watch didn't keep on me and tell me where I'm at as a status, like on a monthly basis, I'm after those awards.
Yep, absolutely. Susan, anything from you on that one? Anything you've done to kind of increase engagement on the platform?
So, I think it's building our relationships, working in tandem with the university. We're always seeking out different things to, get involved with. One area is with exec ed programs within the university. So we have a portal that allows discounts and allows people to do eCornell courses and that type of thing through the university. Why is that important to us? Well, their executive education programs, through some of these specialized ones that they have, offer these degrees that then bring in affiliate members. So there are programs within the university, this general manager's program, 2-week program during the summer. If someone attends that program, the university pays for their first year dues in our association because they see the value, and it is a selling point to the university that people will sign up for this program and then they get the alumni network with it. And so we have a cocktail party. We do another pinning ceremony with them while they're on campus. They've got their first year of dues free. And then we need to show them the value of the lobby and then try and keep them as members going into the future. So it's constantly churning. We're promoting eCornell. They give us certificates at our events so that we can promote their programs. Everything is just sort of all intertwined. And so I would say, looking at your community, looking at where your sources of engagement are as far as bringing in new members and creating relationships with them and finding ways to bring everyone together. I notice here that Kimberly Balkus is it Balkus is with MIT higher ed, and so it would be interesting. I'd be happy to have you share my contact information with her if she wanted to talk more offline. Because we, again, we learn from each other. There might be stuff that they're doing at MIT that we can build on our platform as well. So constantly just learning from each other is a huge win for everyone.
Awesome. We'll definitely connect the two of you. So thank you for that. We are at time, everyone. I'm a big stickler for honoring everyone's time. So we're going to let you go. But thank you, Jason. Thank you, Susan, for being here with us today. It's been really awesome hearing your insight. To our audience, we will be sharing this recording by email. So if you have any questions, please hit the email reply button. Let us know. We're happy to help. A link, Kat has dropped a survey. Thank you, Kat, for organizing this as well. There's a survey link that has been dropped in the chat. So please do share your feedback with us. We'd love to hear it. Thank you all for joining from wherever you are. Please join us in the Hivebrite community and have a good day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.